At my parents' anniversary banquet, I found my seat behind the kitchen doors beside the cleaning carts. My brother smirked. That's where freeloaders belong. I picked up the sealed envelope I had brought, stood up, then walked out without arguing. Minutes later, my brother suddenly started shouting. My name card was behind the kitchen doors. I found it propped against a cleaning cart between a mop bucket and a stack of folded white tablecloths. The calligraphy was the same as every other card at the banquet: cream stock, gold ink, my name in cursive. Someone had taken time with the lettering. The placement was not an accident. A single chair had been set against the wall with a place setting that included one fork, one knife, one water glass, and nothing else. No centerpiece, no candle, no white rose. Through the open doorway I could see the head table, crystal stemware, white roses in low glass bowls, 14 family members already in their seats, cloth napkins fanned into shapes I did not recognize. My parents' 40th anniversary banquet. $11,000. 3 months of planning. A rented hall with chandeliers and a sound system and a parking attendant and a printed program with their photo on the cover. My chair was next to a mop bucket. The bucket's metal handle was rusted at the joint where it connected to the frame. Someone had wrapped masking tape around the rust. The bucket smelled like floor cleaner. My name was in gold calligraphy 3 inches from the tape. Vincent was watching me from the far end of the head table. He had a wine glass raised and a smile that I had paid for, though he did not know that yet. He set the glass down when he saw me standing behind the kitchen doors, and he said it loud enough for the table. That is where freeloaders belong. Behind the doors where the real guests cannot see them. You drive a 12-year-old car, you live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and you shelve books for a living. Mom and Dad spent $11,000 on this banquet, and you did not chip in a single dollar. The least we can do is keep you close to the exit so you do not have to pretend you belong at the table. 3 people at the table looked down at their plates. 2 cousins I had not spoken to in over a year exchanged a glance I could see but not interpret. Sabine, who worked with me at the school library and who Dolores had invited because Nell needed at least one friend, was seated at the end of the head table closest to my doorway. She was looking at me with the specific expression of someone who was preparing to stand up and say something and was waiting for a signal from me to do it. I gave her a small shake of my head. Not now. Dolores waited for the table to settle. Then she said, with her hands folded in a way that was meant to look compassionate, "He is not wrong. We love Nell. But we cannot keep pretending this is comfortable for anyone. She knows where she fits. She knows where she fits." 5 words, delivered at a table with crystal and white roses, aimed at a doorway with a mop bucket and masking tape. The sealed envelope was on the chair beside my place setting, where I had put it when I arrived 10 minutes earlier, before anyone else had come through the side entrance. Cream-colored envelope, hand-addressed in my own handwriting. 9 pages inside, numbered, containing a line-by-line accounting of every dollar I had sent this family over the past 4 years. I had written it over 3 days. I had checked the math twice. I had sealed it with the idea that I would leave it on the table as a farewell, that they would open it after I was gone and read the numbers and understand what they had been taking from the person they had seated behind the kitchen doors. The mop bucket changed the equation. They did not deserve a farewell letter. They deserved an invoice. I almost left the envelope on the table. I had planned this for 3 weeks. The pages were numbered, and the math was verified, and the handwriting was careful, and I had imagined them reading it while I drove home. But the mop bucket was beside my chair, rusted handle, masking tape, 3 inches from my name in gold calligraphy. They had put a mop bucket next to my name. I picked up the envelope and put it in my coat pocket. I stood. I pushed the chair back under the table. I did not look through the doorway at the head table. I walked to the side exit and I stepped into the parking lot. My car was in the 4th row. I sat in the driver's seat and took out my phone. I called the banquet hall's main number, which I had saved in my contacts 3 months ago when I paid the $8,000 deposit. The manager answered on the second ring. "This is Nell. I placed the deposit for the anniversary banquet in Hall B. I need to cancel the credit card authorization for the remaining balance. All of it." The manager confirmed the amount, $10,042. She asked if I was sure. I said I was. She processed the cancellation while I sat in my car with the engine running and the envelope in my coat and the banquet hall windows glowing across the parking lot. It took 4 minutes. 8 minutes after I left, my phone buzzed. Sabine, texting from the restroom inside the hall. Manager just walked up to the head table. She is holding a folder. I sat in the driver's seat with the engine running and the heater on and the envelope in my coat pocket and the parking lot mostly dark except for the banquet hall's ground floor windows, which glowed warm and yellow and showed shapes moving inside that I could not quite resolve into people. Next text, Vincent's face. I wish you could see it. Next, he pulled out a card. She ran it at the portable terminal. Next, declined. Next, he pulled out another one. Different wallet pocket. Next, also declined. He is looking around the table. Next, your mom has not moved. Your dad is reaching for his wallet. His hands are slow. Next, it went through. Your dad's card. He is not looking at anyone. Next, Vincent is standing up. He is raising his voice. The manager is stepping back. Next, he said, "She did this. She walked out and canceled the payment." He is pointing at the door you left through. Next, 3 people are getting up from the far end. They are leaving through the side door. Nobody is talking to Vincent. I read each text as it arrived, one after another, sitting in the car with my hands on the steering wheel while the banquet I had paid $8,000 to begin and $10,000 to end played out through Sabine's phone in sentence fragments. Through the windows I could see a standing shape that might have been Vincent pacing near the head table, and a seated shape that did not move, which could have been Dolores or could have been anyone, and none of it was mine to watch anymore. I knew from the texts what had happened with the cards. Vincent's regular card had been near its limit because he earned $72,000 a year and spent like someone who earned more, and his second card, the one from the different wallet pocket, was the one carrying $22,000 in debt that Tamsin did not know about. That card was maxed. 2 declines in front of 14 family members and a banquet manager holding a portable terminal. Harmon's debit had covered the remaining $10,042. Their savings account, which I knew held approximately $11,400 because Dolores had mentioned the balance to me once during a Sunday call when she was explaining why they could not cover a dental bill, was now down to $1,358. Their emergency fund was gone. Then the back door of the hall opened. Sabine crossed the parking lot in the cold, her coat unbuttoned because she had left quickly, and she got into the passenger seat without asking and closed the door and looked at me. "You are shaking," she said. "I just canceled $10,000. "Good." We sat for 4 minutes in the car with the heater on and the windows fogging slightly at the edges. She did not ask about the envelope in my coat. She did not ask about the text from 3 days ago, which I had not told her about yet. She said, "Second period starts at 8:15 on Monday. I will bring coffee." I drove her to her car on the other side of the lot, and she got out and waved once, and I drove home. In the apartment, I hung up my coat. The envelope was in the pocket. I left it there. If you have ever been the person behind the doors while your family sat at the table you paid for, you know this story already. If you are new, welcome to Family Secret Tales. The envelope is still sealed. 3 days before the banquet, a text message had arrived in the family group chat that changed everything I was planning to do and did not change anything I ended up doing. The message was from Vincent, and it was not meant for me. It was meant for Dolores and Harmon only, a private instruction sent to the wrong thread. It said, "Don't waste good seats on her. She shows up, eats, and contributes nothing. Put her somewhere out of the way. I read it in the school parking lot at 3:47 in the afternoon, sitting in my car after dismissal, my bag on the passenger seat and a stack of returned books in the back that I had been planning to reshelve the next morning. I read it twice. I looked at the group chat members, Dolores, Harmon, Vincent, Tamsin, 2 cousins, and me. Vincent had sent it to all of us. I waited for someone to respond. Nobody did. Not Dolores, not Harmon, not Tamsin, not the cousins. The message sat in the chat for 2 hours without a reply, which told me everything I needed to know about how many people in the family disagreed with it. I did not reply either. I drove home, and I sat at my kitchen table, and I pulled up my bank app, and I began to count. 4 years of transfers. The first one had been in March, 4 years ago, after Dolores called on a Sunday evening and said that Harmon's insurance premiums had gone up, and they were behind on 2 payments, and could I help with something, anything, just until they got caught up. I sent $800 the next Monday. Then I sent it again the following month, because the getting caught up had not happened yet, and Dolores said the premiums were quarterly and there was always another one coming. By the 4th month, the transfer had become a standing item in my budget, and by the 8th month, I had stopped thinking of it as temporary and started thinking of it as a fact. 48 payments of $800 to Dolores, $38,400. I counted them on the screen and confirmed each one against the transaction date. I remember the first payment because I had to adjust my own budget to make it work, cutting the streaming service I used at night and switching from the grocery store I liked to the cheaper one across town. I remember the 20th payment because that was the month I realized I would not be able to replace my car's timing belt and would need to drive it until it failed, which it did. And I took the bus for 3 weeks until I found a used belt at a salvage yard, and Sabine's husband installed it for free on a Saturday. 23 payments of $617 for Vincent's car loan. The call had come 23 months ago on a Wednesday, and Vincent had been speaking quickly and without his usual confidence, which was how I knew something was actually wrong rather than performed. He said he had been restructured, that his position had been eliminated, and that the car was going to be repossessed if he missed one more payment. Could I cover it? Just for a few months until he landed somewhere. I said yes. I set up the transfer that evening. He landed a new position 5 months later. The payments continued because neither of us mentioned stopping them, and I did not raise it because raising it required a conversation about money that would have revealed how much I was already sending to Dolores, and the entire arrangement functioned on the principle that each piece of it was invisible to the other pieces. $14,191. 23 payments of $617. I verified the math on my phone's calculator because I had been verifying the math on everything for 3 days, and the numbers kept being the same. The property tax payment I had made last spring, $4,800. Dolores had called in April and said the county had sent a notice, and the deadline was in 9 days, and she and Harmon were short. I transferred the full amount the next morning. She thanked me. She did not mention it again. The miscellaneous expenses, the furnace repair when the heat went out in January 2 years ago, and the technician charged $1,200 for the part in labor. The anniversary cake for the 38th anniversary, $340, ordered from the bakery Dolores liked. 3 emergency room copays when Harmon's gout flared, and the insurance only covered 80%. New tires for Dolores's car when hers went bald the previous winter, each one documented in my transaction history with a note I had written to myself at the time. $4,009. Total $61,400. I sat with that number for a long time. I made a sandwich. I ate it at the table. I looked at the number again. It had not changed. $61,400 from a woman who earns $42,000 a year shelving books and running reading programs for 8-year-olds. 146% of 1 year's income sent over 4 years to a family that had just placed her name card beside a mop bucket. I spent the next 3 evenings writing the letter. 9 pages, handwritten on lined paper, each page containing a section of the accounting with dates, amounts, and what the money had been for. I numbered the pages in the top right corner. I checked every figure against my bank records. I sealed the letter in a cream-colored envelope and addressed it to my parents' house, because I had originally thought I might mail it if I could not bring myself to hand it over in person. In the end, I brought it to the Banquet, because the point was not the postal service. The point was standing in the room where they had decided I did not belong and leaving behind a document that proved what my belonging had cost. I should tell you why I was still involved with this family, why I kept sending money and kept attending dinners and kept answering the Sunday phone calls. The answer is simple, and I am not proud of it. My mother called me every Sunday at 10 a.m. for 4 years, and she always ended the call the same way. I do not know what we would do without you, Nell. I believed her. I believed the warmth in her voice was the whole truth about how she felt about me, and I let the warmth cover everything else, including the fact that she was telling the extended family I was barely getting by, and that she worried about me, and that she accepted $800 a month from the daughter she described as struggling. I should have listened to what the family said when she was not on the phone. I should have checked the read receipts. The fake health event came on day 1. Dolores called at 2 p.m. Her voice had the low, strained quality it took on when she was managing a situation that required the other person to feel guilty before they could think clearly. Your father had chest pains last night after the banquet. He is in bed. He cannot speak right now. Are you happy, Nell? Is this what you wanted? I almost believed it. He was 62 years old. He had a history of high blood pressure. Chest pains in a man his age are not something you dismiss because you are angry at his wife. Bodies do not perform the way families do, and the voice in my head that said, "What if this is real?" was louder than the voice that said the timing is suspicious. I said, "Let me call him." She said, "He is resting. He cannot talk." I said, "I am going to call his phone." Dolores did not respond to that. I hung up and called Harmon directly. He picked up on the first ring, which is not what happens when a person is in bed with chest pains and resting and unable to talk. His voice was normal. Relaxed, there was a television on in the background, something with a laugh track, and the ambient sound of a house where nothing medical was happening. "Hey, Nell," he said, the way he said it every time I called, which was rarely. The conversation lasted 9 seconds. I thanked him and ended the call. I opened my voice recording app because I had begun recording all family calls since the banquet, and I saved the file. I texted the audio clip to Dolores with one line, "Dad sounds fine." The demand letter goes out Monday. She read the message. She did not respond. The read receipt appeared at 2:14 p.m. The response did not. On day 3, I walked into Oren's office on the 2nd floor of a building that shared a lobby with an accounting firm and a chiropractor. His office had a window that looked onto a parking lot and a desk organized with the kind of precision that told you he was not the kind of attorney who lost track of documents. I set my phone and laptop and 3 folders on his desk and walked him through everything. The bank records, 48 transfers of $800 to Dolores, 23 transfers of $617 for Vincent's car, 1 property tax payment of $4,800, miscellaneous expenses totaling $4,009. Grand total, $61,400. The banquet contract, $18,000 total, $8,000 deposit paid by me in September. Remaining $10,000 that had been on my card until I canceled it from the parking lot. Vincent's wrong text, with the read receipt timestamps showing every family member had opened it, including Dolores at 4:12 p.m., 25 minutes after it was sent. Oren reviewed the materials for 10 minutes. He made notes on a yellow pad. He did not look surprised, because civil attorneys who handle family financial disputes develop the specific professional ability to receive numbers without reacting to them. Unjust enrichment claim on the monthly payments to your mother, he said. Breach of informal loan agreement on the car payments to your brother. Every dollar is documented. The demand letter will be fully itemized. Total demand? $61,400. 30-day deadline? Yes, I will have it ready by day 10. On day 5, a Monday, Sabine met me in the school library before first period. She had 2 cups of the dark roast from the coffee shop that opened at 6:30, the one the custodian called motor oil because it left a ring on any surface you set it on. She placed one on my desk without commentary and carried the other to the reading corner and sat down in the small chair, the one the third graders used during Read Aloud, because she always chose that chair for our conversations, and she liked the way her knees came up high and made everything feel less formal than it was. She did not mention the banquet. She did not mention the family. She did not ask about the envelope. She said, "How many books came back late over break?" I checked the returns cart. 14, any damaged? 1, Charlotte's Web. Cover torn at the spine. We can fix that, she said. And we went back to work, because that was what we did, and because Sabine understood, without needing to be told, that what I needed on a Monday morning in January, after canceling $10,000 and walking out of a banquet hall and driving home with a sealed envelope in my coat, was not a conversation about feelings. It was the ordinary work of a school library, returns, repairs, reshelving, and the 23 third graders who would arrive in 45 minutes expecting someone to read to them. The twist came through Oren's standard civil asset search and through my own phone. When Oren filed the demand letter, he ran a preliminary asset review on Vincent as part of the claim preparation. The results came back on day 6. Vincent had $22,000 in outstanding credit card debt across 2 accounts. Minimum payments on both cards combined, $640 a month. Tamsin's name was not on either account. Oren noted the debt as relevant to the collectability of the demand, but the detail that landed hardest was not the amount. It was the employment record. Vincent had told the family he was restructured when he lost his job 23 months ago. The employment filing showed he had been terminated for cause, expense report fraud, $3,200 over 14 months. He had not been restructured. He had been fired for stealing from his employer. And when his car payment became unmanageable, he had called me, the sister who shelves books for a living, and asked me to cover it until he got back on his feet. I had sent $617 a month for 23 months while he used the freed-up cash flow to make minimum payments on credit card debt his wife did not know about. The second piece came from my own phone. I scrolled back through the family group chat to Vincent's wrong text from day 3 and looked at the message status. Every member of the chat had a read receipt, including Dolores. She had opened the message at 4:12 p.m., 25 minutes after Vincent sent it. She had read, "Don't waste good seats on her. She shows up, eats, and contributes nothing." She had closed the chat without replying. 3 days later, my chair was behind the kitchen doors beside a cleaning cart with a rusted handle and masking tape. Dolores had seen the plan. She had not moved my seat. She had let it happen. I almost softened during the confrontation preparation. I was sitting at my kitchen table on day 7 with the phone photos of the accounting and the asset search results and the group chat screenshots and the audio file of Harmon's normal voice, and I was thinking about the Sunday calls. 4 years of them. I do not know what we would do without you. Dolores's voice on those calls had been warm. It had been consistent. It had been every Sunday at 10 a.m. for 208 consecutive weeks. I almost decided that the warmth had been real, and the cleaning cart had been Vincent's doing alone. Then I opened the group chat and scrolled to the read receipt. Dolores, read at 4:12 p.m. No reply. She had loved me from behind the kitchen doors. That is not love, that is bookkeeping. If you have been following this family's math, you already know what is coming. Family secret tales. The meeting is next. On day 8, Vincent called a family meeting at the parents' house. He sent a text to the same group chat, "We need to discuss what Nell did at the banquet, Sunday at 2. He expected to be the one doing the discussing. He expected Nell at the table with her head down, absorbing whatever version of events he had prepared. He did not expect me to bring my phone. I arrived at 2:05. Tamsin was at the kitchen table, which surprised me, because she rarely came to family events that involved the word discuss. Dolores was in her usual chair. Harmon was standing near the counter, arms crossed, looking at the floor. Vincent was at the head of the table in the same posture he had used at the banquet, slightly forward, chin up, ready to deliver the first line the way he delivered every first line, loud and early. "You embarrassed this entire family," he said before I had fully sat down. "You walked out of Mom and Dad's anniversary banquet, you canceled the payment without telling anyone, and you left 14 people sitting in a hall while a manager asked for money. Dad had to use his savings. 3 guests left. Do you understand what you did?" I let him finish. I let the last words settle into the room the way last words settle when the person speaking them believes they are the final words that will be spoken on the subject. Then I said, "May I?" I set my phone on the table, screen up, open to the bank transfer history. For 4 years I have been sending Mom $800 a month, 48 payments. $38,400. I scrolled the screen. The numbers were there, each one time stamped, each one labeled with the recipient. I covered Vincent's car payment for 23 months after he told us he lost his job. $617 a month, $14,191. I set a printed page beside the phone, Oren's itemized summary. I paid the property tax last spring, $4,800. I paid for the furnace, the anniversary cake 2 years ago, 3 of Dad's copays, $4,009. The total over 4 years is $61,400. I let that number sit in the room. The banquet deposit was $8,000. I paid it in September. My name is on the contract. The remaining $10,000 was authorized on my credit card until I canceled it from the parking lot after Vincent told me I was a freeloader who did not chip in a single dollar. You spent $11,000 of my money on a party where my chair was beside a mop bucket. The mop bucket had masking tape on the handle. My name was in gold calligraphy. Dolores's hands were on the table. They were moving slightly, a tremor she was trying to control by pressing her fingers flat against the wood. Harmon had not moved from the counter. He was looking at the phone screen from 6 feet away, and I could tell from the angle of his gaze that he was trying to read the numbers without walking closer, because walking closer would have meant choosing a side. "And Vincent," I said, and I turned to him. 3 days before the banquet, you sent a text to the family group chat. You meant it for Mom and Dad only, but you sent it to everyone. Don't waste good seats on her. She shows up, eats, and contributes nothing. I read it. I still came. I brought the envelope. I touched my coat, where the envelope was still in my pocket. I was going to leave the accounting on the table as a goodbye. The cleaning cart changed my mind. I opened the asset search summary on my phone. You told the family you were restructured 23 months ago. You were not restructured. You were terminated for cause. Expense report fraud. $3,200 over 14 months. Your employer fired you for stealing. When your car payment became unmanageable, you called the sister who shelves books for a living, and I covered it for 23 months while you used the money I freed up to make minimum payments on $22,000 in credit card debt that your wife does not know about. Tamsin had been still until this moment. Now she turned. She looked at Vincent. She looked at the phone. She looked back at Vincent. Her face did the thing faces do when several pieces of information that had been separate suddenly connect and form a single picture that is worse than any individual piece. She did not speak. She sat very straight, and she put her hands in her lap, and she did not speak for the remainder of the meeting. Vincent's jaw tightened. His hand went flat on the table the way hands go flat when they are searching for a surface to push against. He looked at Tamsin. No rescue. He looked at Dolores. She was pressing her fingers into the wood. The woman who shelves books for a living, I said, paid $61,400 to keep this family running for 4 years. The man who called her a freeloader has $22,000 in credit card debt his wife did not know about until 30 seconds ago. I shelve books. You shelve your bills behind your wife's back. Tell me who the freeloader is, Vincent. He opened his mouth. He closed it. And Mom, I said, turning to Dolores. You saw the text. The read receipt shows you opened it at 4:12 p.m., 25 minutes after Vincent sent it. You read it. You did not reply. You did not move my chair. You let your daughter be seated beside a mop bucket at the banquet she was paying for. You told Aunt Clara I was barely getting by. You told your church group you worry about me. You accepted $800 a month from the daughter you described as struggling, and you seated her behind the kitchen doors. The struggling daughter was your financial floor for 4 years, Mom. You are standing on it right now. Dolores's chin trembled. She said, "We love you, Nell." I scrolled to Vincent's text on my phone. Don't waste good seats on her. I held the screen toward her. You loved me from behind the kitchen doors. That is not love. That is accounting. You seated the woman who paid for this banquet behind the kitchen door and called her a freeloader. The freeloader just canceled the check. 24 words. I said them the way I said things to the third graders who needed to hear something once and clearly and without emotion so they could decide for themselves whether it was true. There is no more $800 a month. There is no more covering Vincent's car. There is no more property tax check in the spring. There is no phone call on Sunday that ends with, "I do not know what we would do without you." You found out what you do without me. You seated me behind the kitchen doors. Now find out. I stood. I picked up my phone. I put my coat on. The envelope was in the pocket, sealed, undelivered, 9 pages of handwriting that was too gentle for the room I was standing in. I walked to the front door, and I opened it, and I stepped outside, and I did not look back, because there was nothing behind me that belonged to me anymore. On day 10, Orrin sent the demand letter by certified mail, $61,400, itemized across 4 categories, with bank records attached and a 30-day repayment deadline. 3 copies, one to Dolores and Harmon's house, one to Vincent, one to Vincent's employer address on file. Vincent received his copy at home in a flat white envelope with the law firm's return address in the corner. He opened it at the kitchen table while Tamsin was in the next room. The letter listed his portion, $14,191 for the car payments, combined with the $22,000 in credit card debt that Tamsin now knew about. Vincent's total personal debt was $36,000 against a salary of $72,000. Half his annual income owed, with minimum payments on the credit cards taking $640 a month, the car payment back on him at $617 a month, and the demand letter adding $14,000 to the pile. He set the letter on the table and sat with it for a long time, the way people sit with numbers when the numbers have stopped being abstract and started being an address they will have to move to. Tamsin had not spoken to him for 38 hours after the confrontation. Not about the credit cards, not about the car payments from Nell, not about the expense fraud or the restructuring lie. She had moved through the house for 38 hours, performing the ordinary tasks of a shared life, cooking dinner, loading the dishwasher, setting the alarm, going to bed, all of it done in the kind of silence that is not the absence of speech, but the presence of something too large for speech to carry. When she finally spoke, on the evening of day 9, she said 5 words from the kitchen doorway while Vincent was sitting at the table. "Were you ever going to tell me?" He looked at her. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out that was fast enough to be honest, and nothing honest enough to be fast, and so he said nothing, which was the first thing he had communicated to his wife in 23 months that did not contain a lie. She turned and went to the guest room. She slept there for 4 nights. On the 5th night, she returned to the bedroom and turned off the light, and they lay in the dark without speaking. The conversation they would eventually need to have was somewhere in the room with them, but neither of them reached for it, and the dark was large enough to hold it for now. On day 14, a Sunday, at 10 a.m., Dolores sat at her kitchen table with her phone face up beside a cup of coffee that was going cold. For 4 years, every Sunday at 10, the phone had rung. My voice on the other end, asking about her week, listening to the small updates about the garden and the grocery list and the neighbor's dog and Harmon's back. 4 years, 208 consecutive Sundays, and the call had become so structural that she planned her mornings around it. Coffee first, then the call, then the dishes, then the noon news. It was load-bearing. She had not realized it was load-bearing until the load was gone. At 10:00, the phone did not ring. She looked at it. She looked at the clock on the microwave. 10:00. At 10:15, she picked the phone up and set it back down without opening anything. At 10:30, she opened my contact. The last message in the thread was the audio file of Harmon's normal voice, the recording I had sent on day 1, proof that the chest pain story had been a performance. She stared at the message for a moment. She closed the contact. At 11:00, she made a second cup of coffee. She stood at the counter while it brewed and looked out the window at the yard, which was brown and empty in January the way all yards are brown and empty in January. At 11:30, she washed the mug from the first cup. She dried it. She put it away. At noon, she was still at the table. The phone was face down now. The house was quiet in the specific way a house is quiet when the person who held it together financially and emotionally and structurally for 4 years has stopped holding, and the quiet has not yet been filled by anything else, and may not be. Harmon was in the other room watching television. He had not mentioned my name since the confrontation. His silence was no longer the enablement it had been at the banquet, when his not looking had been a choice made on behalf of convenience. It was something closer to shame now, the slow arriving kind that does not announce itself but settles into a person's posture and stays there. The kind that shows in the way someone holds a newspaper without reading it or stares at a television without registering what is on. He had understood, too late, that his silence at the banquet had been a vote, and the vote had been for the wrong side. And he did not know how to cast a different one because the mechanism for casting it had always been speech, and speech was the thing he had spent 35 years of marriage choosing not to use. Dolores's savings account showed $1,358. The demand letter was on Harmon's desk in the other room, unopened. Because Dolores had not yet been willing to read the number at the bottom, and Harmon had not been willing to open it for her. It sat there like every other document in the family's history that contained a truth neither of them wanted to be the first to see. It is day 28. Monday morning. The school library smells like old paper and carpet cleaner, and the specific warmth that builds in a room with south-facing windows by 8 am in late January. Sabine is in the doorway between the library and the main hallway, holding 2 cups of coffee, the dark roast, motor oil, the one that leaves rings. She hands me one without saying anything about the banquet or the family or the demand letter or the $61,400 because she said everything she needed to say in the parking lot 3 weeks ago when she got in the passenger seat and said good, and everything she needed to say the Monday after that when she brought coffee and asked about the late returns and sat in the small chair and said we can fix that, and nothing else is needed saying since. 23 third graders are sitting on the carpet in the reading corner. They are waiting for the next chapter. The book is open in my lap and the page is marked with a yellow sticky note, and the room is warm and the children are quiet in the way children are quiet when they trust the person holding the book, and the person holding the book has not yet started reading, and the anticipation is part of the pleasure. On the top shelf behind my desk, between the reference materials and a set of encyclopedias that no one has opened since 2019, there is a sealed cream-colored envelope, hand-addressed in my own handwriting, 9 pages inside, $61,400 documented in careful cursive, each page numbered, each figure checked twice. I have not mailed it. I do not need to. The certified demand letter said everything the envelope was too gentle to say. The gentle version was revoked the night they placed my name in gold calligraphy beside a mop bucket with masking tape on its handle. And the version that replaced it has a 30-day deadline and a bar number at the bottom, and the kind of math that does not require gold ink to be understood. The children are waiting. Sabine is in the doorway. The coffee is hot. I turn the page. If this story reached you, if you know what it is to fund the room you were never allowed to sit in, you are who Family Secret Tales was built for. Subscribe, the next story is already here.